The documentaries, fictional stories, and poems on this channel contain mature themes including psychological horror, violence, death, self-harm, mental health crises, and other disturbing subject matter. If you're sensitive to dark content, this may not be for you. Listener discretion is strongly advised. Greetings, specimens. I am the Howlerist. In 2021, a private company announced they would resurrect the dodo bird from extinction. By 2025, they'd raised $500 million. No oversight, no regulation. If this terrifies you, you're paying attention. Subscribe and join us as we uncover what happens when corporations play God for profit. Tonight, we examine what they're creating behind closed doors, what they're not telling you, and what happens when you bring back something that was never meant to return. This is the Dodo Project. In 2021, a private biotechnology company announced they were going to resurrect extinct species through genetic engineering. The woolly mammoth, the Tasmanian tiger, the dodo bird. By January 2025, they had raised $435 million. Their valuation reached $10 billion. They operate private laboratories at undisclosed locations. Their methods are proprietary. There is no government oversight of their work. No regulatory framework exists for what they're doing. In April 2025, they announced their first success. 3 dire wolf puppies, they claimed. A species extinct for 10,000 years brought back to life. Scientists immediately disputed it. Experts said they just modified gray wolves. No ancient DNA was actually used. One wildlife biologist stated publicly that the animals were nothing more than slightly altered coyotes from Louisiana. The company ignored these criticisms and raised another $200 million within months. The Dodo Project, originally estimated at 10 to 15 years, was suddenly projected at just 5 to 7. No one asked why the timeline kept shrinking. This is what they're not telling you. Part 1. The Island. The dodo existed in only one place on Earth, Mauritius, a small volcanic island in the Indian Ocean, 2,000 kilometers off the coast of Africa. The island is tiny, just 2,000 square kilometers, smaller than Luxembourg. When the dodo evolved there hundreds of thousands of years ago, Mauritius was uninhabited. Dense forests, no predators, abundant food. The dodo grew large and flightless because it never needed to fly. It had no fear because nothing had ever hunted it. It nested on the ground and laid 1 egg per year because that was enough. For hundreds of thousands of years, this worked perfectly. Then, in 1598, Dutch sailors arrived. Part 2, 83 years. The dodo had never seen humans. When sailors approached, the birds didn't run. Historical accounts describe them as curious, approachable. One ship reported catching 24 dodos in a single day. The sailors clubbed them to death. Ironically, most accounts say the meat was terrible, tough, nearly inedible, even after prolonged cooking. But the dodo was easy to catch, and protein was protein, on a long voyage. The name dodo likely comes from Portuguese "dudo," meaning fool. The Dutch called them disgusting birds. These were not terms of endearment, but direct hunting wasn't the worst of it. The Dutch brought pigs, which destroyed nests and ate eggs. Rats came aboard ships accidentally and spread across the island. Macaques were introduced as exotic animals. All of these species began preying on dodo eggs and chicks. Studies show pigs killed 86% of the nests they found. The dodo, which laid only one egg per year on the ground, had no defense. The Dutch also began harvesting Mauritius's ebony wood. Forests were cleared for timber and agriculture. 95% of the island's native forests were destroyed. The specific plants the dodo had evolved to eat vanished. By the 1640s, just 40 years after contact, the dodo had become rare. The last confirmed sighting was in 1662. After that, nothing. From first human contact to complete extinction took 83 years. The human population of Mauritius during this period never exceeded 50 people. 50 people destroyed an entire species. Part 3. What we don't know. Here is what we actually have. No photographs, no preserved specimens. One complete skeleton assembled from multiple birds. A handful of drawings made by sailors, many of whom had never actually seen a living dodo. These drawings contradict each other. Different colors, different body shapes, different proportions. The famous image of the fat, clumsy dodo was likely based on overfed captive birds. Modern research suggests wild dodos were leaner and well-adapted. But we don't actually know. We don't know what color its feathers were. We don't know how it moved or what sounds it made. We don't know its exact diet, beyond educated guesses. We don't know its breeding behavior in detail. We know almost nothing about how it actually lived. The last person who saw a living dodo died 300 years ago. So when this company announces they've brought the dodo back, how will anyone verify that claim? What are we comparing it to? 400-year-old sketches made by drunk sailors? Part 4. Genetic Frankenstein. The company has obtained DNA from museum specimens, bones and tissue fragments that have been decaying for 344 years. When an organism dies, its DNA immediately begins breaking down. Enzymes destroy it. Environmental factors accelerate the process. Even under perfect conditions, DNA can only survive about 6.8 million years. The dodo specimens were not preserved under perfect conditions. What remains is fragmented, incomplete, contaminated with bacteria and fungal DNA. To fill the gaps, they're using the Nicobar pigeon, the dodo's closest living relative. But these species diverged 23 million years ago. For comparison, humans and chimpanzees only diverged 6 million years ago. The company's plan is to edit Nicobar pigeon genes to express dodo traits. As of September 2025, they'd made 200 genetic edits. But here's the problem. We don't know which genes made a dodo a dodo. We're guessing based on physical differences, and genes don't work in isolation. Changing one affects dozens of others in unpredictable ways. There's also epigenetics, the layer of control that determines how genes are expressed. Epigenetic patterns are shaped by environment during development. A dodo embryo in 1650 experienced completely different conditions than a lab-engineered pigeon embryo in 2030. Same genes, different expression, different outcome. The reconstructed dodo will have Nicobar pigeon mitochondrial DNA because it's developing in a pigeon egg. This mismatch between nuclear and mitochondrial DNA can cause severe metabolic problems. It will also inherit its gut bacteria from its surrogate mother. The dodo's microbiome was adapted to digest specific Mauritian plants. This thing will have pigeon gut bacteria, adapted to a completely different diet. Most critically, there's no way to verify accuracy. We don't have a complete dodo genome to compare against. We don't have detailed anatomical records. When they present their creation, we can only ask, does this look close enough to our fragmentary evidence? They could create almost anything and call it a dodo. Who's going to prove them wrong? Part 5. The Dead World. Even if they created a perfect genetic copy, it still wouldn't be a dodo, because the dodo was not just DNA. It was an organism adapted to an environment that no longer exists. Mauritius has been transformed. 95% of native forests gone, or critically endangered. The tambalakoki tree, its primary food source, nearly went extinct itself. In 1973, only 13 trees remained, all 300 years old. The invasive species that killed the dodo are still there: rats, pigs, macaques. Studies show these animals destroy 2/3 of bird nests on modern Mauritius during breeding season. If you release a resurrected dodo today, it faces the exact same threats that destroyed the original population. Predators eating its eggs, no suitable food, destroyed habitat. The company claims they'll address this through habitat restoration and invasive species control. But these problems have been ongoing for decades. Conservation organizations have been struggling with them for years. They haven't been solved. And there's something else no one is discussing. Animal behavior isn't purely instinctive. Young animals learn from their parents. They learn what to eat, how to find food, how to interact with their species. The first resurrected dodo will have no parent to learn from. It will be an organism with dodo genetics, raised by a different species in a laboratory, then released into an environment it was never meant for. What characteristics will it have? How will it know how to be a dodo when no dodo has existed for over 3 centuries? Part 6. The Lie. The company calls this conservation. They talk about restoring ecological balance and conservation optimism. They describe the dodo as a cherished species. Cherished? We exterminated the dodo in 83 years. Sailors called it foolish and disgusting. They clubbed it to death for meat they admitted was terrible. We brought animals that ate its eggs, and we cut down its forests. This is not a story of a cherished species tragically lost. This is a story of systematic destruction, and now a private company wants to undo that destruction through genetic engineering, not genuine ecological restoration. They want to create an approximation of something we killed and call it conservation. But that framing hides what this actually is. This is a technology demonstration. The dodo is not the product. The genetic engineering capability is the product. The dodo is proof of concept. Once they prove they can resurrect an extinct bird, that technology has applications far beyond conservation. Agriculture, medicine, applications we haven't imagined yet. The dodo is just the mascot. And because this is a venture capital-funded startup, there are pressures that have nothing to do with science. They need results to attract investment. They need milestones to satisfy existing investors. They need headlines to build their brand. When the direwolf announcement was disputed by scientists, the company still got their headlines and their funding round. Mission accomplished. What happens when the dodo timeline gets too long? When investors demand results? When there's pressure to announce success, regardless of whether true success has been achieved? Most of their research hasn't been published in peer-reviewed journals. Their methods are proprietary. Their labs are undisclosed. We only know what they tell us in press releases. There's no regulatory oversight, no independent verification, no requirement that they share their failures. In genetic engineering, success comes after many failures. Malformed embryos, organisms born with severe deformities, things that live for hours or days before dying. Where are those failures? What happened to them? How many attempts were created and destroyed? We don't know, and there's no law requiring them to tell us. Part 7. The real question. The dodo went extinct for a reason. It was a specialist species that could only survive under very specific conditions: complete isolation, no predators, stable climate, abundant food. When those conditions changed rapidly, it had no defense. Its reproductive rate was too slow. Its behavioral responses too rigid. The dodo was an evolutionary experiment that succeeded for hundreds of thousands of years and then failed catastrophically when its environment shifted. Evolution doesn't create perfect organisms. It creates organisms suited to their current environment. When environments change, some species adapt, others don't. This is normal. Over 99% of all species that have ever existed are now extinct. So what happens when you resurrect a species that already failed? When you force back into existence an organism that couldn't adapt to changing conditions and place it in an environment even more changed than the one that killed it. Some scientists suggest the dodo may have already been in decline before humans arrived, that its population was fragile, localized to specific areas. We know flash floods killed significant numbers. We know it had severe limitations: slow reproduction, ground nesting, inability to fly, no fear response. Perhaps the dodo was already on borrowed time. Perhaps humans simply accelerated an extinction, already in progress. And if that's true, what exactly are we bringing back? Closing. In 5 to 7 years, possibly sooner, there will be an announcement. Photographs, video footage, scientific papers. They will present what they claim is a dodo bird, and we will have no way to verify it. We cannot compare it to the real thing because the real thing has been dead for 344 years. We cannot check its genome against a pure dodo genome because none exists. We cannot observe its behavior and confirm it matches historical descriptions because there are no detailed historical descriptions. We can only ask, does this look close enough? Does it seem plausible? If the answer is yes, they will have succeeded. They will attract more investment. They will move on to woolly mammoths, Tasmanian tigers, giant moas. Each one another proof of concept, another headline, another funding round. But we will never know what compromises were made. How much is dodo? How much is pigeon? How much is something else entirely? What health problems it has? How many failed attempts came before? There is no requirement that they tell us, no oversight demanding transparency. This is proprietary technology developed behind closed doors by a company with financial incentives to declare success as quickly as possible. And once they declare success, the plan is to release these organisms into the wild, into an ecosystem that hasn't had them for over 3 centuries, an ecosystem now dominated by invasive species and human development. No one can predict what will happen. But here's the thing. The dodo was never a keystone species. Its role was seed dispersal, and other species have filled that role in its absence. Introducing a genetic reconstruction won't restore what was lost. It will simply add another variable to an already disrupted system. This isn't about ecological restoration. The ecosystem has adapted to the dodo's absence. This is about proving the technology works. And the truly horrifying part is that the dodo is just the beginning. Each resurrected species represents another opportunity to refine the technology. Another step toward making de-extinction commercially routine. What happens when this technology becomes standard? When companies can resurrect extinct species on demand. When creating new organisms is as simple as editing a document. We have no ethical framework for this, no regulatory structure, no societal consensus. We're allowing a private company with no oversight to pioneer technology that could fundamentally alter our relationship with extinction and evolution itself. And we're doing it in the name of a bird we killed in 83 years. A bird we never cherished. A bird we don't even know what it looked like. The dodo is coming back, but what comes back might not be a dodo at all. It might be something created from fragments and guesses and corporate pressure. Something adapted to nothing, belonging nowhere, existing only because we forced it to. And if that's what we've made, then perhaps the real question isn't what we owe to the dodo. Perhaps the question is what we've become. Specimen D7. The thing that wakes in the incubator doesn't have a name yet. It has a designation, Specimen D7. It opens its eyes in a world of white light and stainless steel. The temperature is precisely controlled, the humidity monitored, every biometric recorded and uploaded to servers in real time. This is the most observed birth in history. The technicians call it a success. D7 tries to stand. Its legs don't work correctly. The joints bend at angles that cause small stress fractures in the bone. It falls. The impact triggers sensors. An alert appears on 3 different monitors. No one responds immediately. This is expected. The first 6 specimens also had mobility issues. D6 lived for 4 hours. D5 lived for 18 hours before its respiratory system failed. D4 was euthanized after 6 hours, when it became clear its brain had developed without a complete cerebellum. D3 never woke up. D2 woke up screaming, if the sounds it made could be called screaming. The audio files from D2 are kept in a restricted folder. 3 technicians requested transfers after that shift. D1 is not discussed. But D7 is still alive. It tries to stand again. Its beak opens and closes. No sound comes out at first. Then a rasping wheeze. Its lungs are working, technically. The oxygen exchange rate is below optimal parameters, but within acceptable margins for continued observation. A technician makes a note. Specimen exhibits persistence, potential behavioral viability. D7 doesn't know it's supposed to be a dodo. It doesn't know what a dodo is. It doesn't know what anything is. Its brain is firing signals that don't connect to anything meaningful. Genetic memory, if such a thing exists, is trying to activate, searching for patterns. Forest floor, fruit, others of its kind. None of these things are in the incubator. There is only white light and steel, and the faint hum of machines. It tries to stand a third time. This time it manages to stay upright for almost 30 seconds before its legs buckle. The bones are too dense for its muscle mass. This is a known issue. The genetic reconstruction overcompensated, but the timeline didn't allow for another round of edits. The investors want results. On day 2, D7 is moved to a larger enclosure. It's still not natural habitat. There is no such thing as natural habitat for D7. The plants in the enclosure are cultivated species, chosen because they're visually similar to extinct Mauritian flora. Close enough for photographs. D7 approaches one of the plants. Its beak is designed for a specific type of seed that no longer exists. The plant in the enclosure has the wrong texture, wrong chemical composition, wrong everything. D7 tries to eat it anyway because it's hungry, and doesn't understand that hunger might not be satisfied. The plant makes it sick. A vet is called. The vomiting is noted in the file. Adjustments will be made to the diet. Specimen shows adverse reaction to substitute vegetation. Recommend processed feed formulation. D7 doesn't understand processed feed. Its digestive system is trying to process food that its ancestors ate 400 years ago. The bacteria in its gut came from the Nicobar pigeon that served as its surrogate. Those bacteria are not adapted for what D7 needs. The resulting inflammation causes constant pain. The pain is noted. Pain management protocols are implemented. An intern suggests this might be cruel. The intern is reminded that the alternative is extinction, that D7 represents hope for conservation, that the discomfort is temporary, a necessary phase of the reintroduction process. The intern stops asking questions. On day 5, D7 starts making sounds. Not the calls of a dodo, because no one knows what those sounded like. These are sounds that emerge from a throat built by genetic guesswork. They are wrong. They hurt to hear. They sound like choking, like something breaking. Audio analysis suggests possible distress vocalization. D7 is alone in its enclosure. In the wild, dodos would have lived in groups. They would have learned from each other, communicated, established social bonds. D7 has no group. There are no others. D7 is the only one that survived past 72 hours. In another facility, they're already working on D8. The genetic edits have been refined, based on data from D7. D8 will have better bone density ratios, improved respiratory function. They've isolated the issue that caused D2's neurological problems. D8 has a 30% better chance of long-term viability. No one mentions what happens to D7 when D8 is ready. The enclosure can only hold one specimen. Resources are allocated for the most promising candidate. On day 8, D7 stops trying to stand. It sits in the corner of the enclosure, beak opening and closing, making those terrible sounds. The cameras capture everything. The footage will be valuable for behavioral analysis. A senior researcher reviews the recordings. She notices something in D7's eyes. Not intelligence, exactly. Nothing that could be measured or quantified, but something that might be recognition, an awareness, however primitive, that something is deeply wrong. She doesn't include this observation in her report. On day 12, the press release goes out. The company announces a major breakthrough in de-extinction technology. The dodo lives again. The headlines proclaim a new era of conservation. Hope restored. The photographs attached to the press release are carefully selected. They show D7 from specific angles, in specific lighting. In the photos, D7 looks almost right. Close enough to the historical illustrations. Close enough to convince the public. What the photos don't show: the way D7's legs are splayed at unnatural angles because standing causes pain. The discharge from its eyes, a side effect of the chronic inflammation. The bald patches, where feathers failed to develop correctly. The tremor in its neck from neurological issues they couldn't quite eliminate. The photos don't show suffering, because suffering doesn't attract investors. On day 15, D7 stops making sounds. It stops moving, unless forced. Its eyes are open, but don't track movement. The veterinary team runs tests. Brain activity is present, but abnormal. Responses to stimuli are delayed. Specimen entering torpor state. Possibly stress-induced. Recommend continued observation. D7 doesn't know what torpor means. D7 doesn't know anything anymore. The signals in its brain are degrading. Genetic instructions that made sense 400 years ago don't make sense in this body, in this place, in this reality. On day 19, D8 hatches. Initial mobility assessment is promising. Bone density within optimal parameters. D8 manages to stand on the first attempt. They need the enclosure. On day 21, D7 is euthanized. The decision is framed as humane. Specimen exhibited declining quality of life metrics. Continuation not in the animal's best interest. The necropsy reveals extensive abnormalities, malformed organs, bone deformities not visible externally, lesions in the brain tissue, chronic systemic inflammation. The pathologist's report runs to 43 pages. None of it will be published. Proprietary research, competitive advantage. D7's tissues are preserved for further study. The genetic data extracted. The lessons learned will be applied to D8, D9, and all the specimens that follow. In the press materials, D7 is never mentioned. The public doesn't need to know about failed attempts. They don't need to know about the suffering required to achieve success. What they see is the carefully curated image. A dodo alive again. Proof that extinction can be reversed. What they don't see is what it cost. 21 days of pain and confusion for a creature that never asked to exist. A thing built from fragments and corporate ambition, forced into life just long enough to prove it could be done. D7 existed for 3 weeks. No name, just a designation. No habitat, just an enclosure. No flock, no forest, no purpose beyond demonstrating technical capability. It died alone in a laboratory, 344 years after the last real dodo died alone in the forests of Mauritius. And in another facility, D8 is trying to stand. Its legs are shaking. The cameras are recording. The investors are watching. The cycle continues because they've proven it can be done. And now they need to prove they can do it better. The suffering is just data. The failures are just iterations. The creatures are just specimens. And somewhere, in a freezer, D7's tissues wait in cryogenic storage, preserved forever, more permanent in death than it ever was in life. The dodo died in 1681. D7 died in 2030. Both times, humans decided their existence was worth less than human ambition. Both times, we called it progress.